Hey everybody, Jason Ryan here from iAnimate. Hopefully you're all doing fantastic this weekend. Happy Valentine's Day. So in last week's snippet, we were talking about weight in characters, and now we're going to talk about weight in objects, so external forces. So when I'm preparing to do a heavy weight assignment, and this was taken from a demo that I'd done a couple of years ago. It was really cool because usually when I'm trying to do an assignment like this, I shoot live action reference of myself. But for this, I really wanted to do a weight assignment that's based on something from a professional, right? So like if I'm doing like a professional baseball player or a professional basketball player or, any kind of sport like that, I look to the professionals to see how they do it. So the same thing with a weight lift. I didn't want to lift a heavy object the wrong way. So I wanted to really study how a professional weightlifter actually lifts a heavy object. And this is Tom Stoltman. He's the unofficial stone world record of 255 kilograms right here. You can see it. And it's basically the stone weight, right, that he's got to prepare to lift. And it was interesting looking at the mechanics of how he's actually doing this. And there's some cool things in here because he's not acting, right? He's not like playing a character. He's actually trying to lift a world record weight of stone, right? So let's have a look. So you can see him here, right in that very first thing. He was going to go down and get this thing. And then he was like, okay, I'm not quite ready yet. So he's psyching himself up for it, right? So he get this little motion downwards, a little bit of a shift in his weight and his feet, right? And his hands are there's some tension there because he's like, oh, okay, I gotta try and get myself around this ball, right, to lift it up, right? Then he's bending down, right? And then he's starting to lift this thing with his legs, right? So you can see his legs sort of extending there, but also sort of with his back, right? And this felt wrong to me for some reason. It felt like that's a lot of pressure on your lower back. But he's obviously he's a professional, so I'll trust that he's doing it properly. All right. And then as he comes up here, he's getting this sort of counterweight thing going on, like where he's resting this on his legs, like so that he can release his hands. And it's sort of like, if that ball wasn't there, he would fall backwards, right? So he's got this counterweight thing going on where the ball is sort of keeping him balanced. Okay. And then this is interesting to see like these shifts in his hands, which is really kind of cool because usually if I was doing like a weight lift assignment or just a person picking up something, I wouldn't do that shifting of hands, right? I would just kind of pick up the object, use some force, use some weight, and then put the object where it needs to be. But this is something super cool because obviously like he's not acting, but I had to treat this as a different kind of constraint setup. So usually I would make the object, this massive object, the parent, right, the master, right, and then like using constraints, but sort of with offset groups that I can actually sort of parent these things to the actual ball, but still make them sort of follow along, right? So I didn't want to make the hands the actual parent because any sort of movement with the hands would move the whole ball, which would make the thing feel weightless, right? So I want to make sure that the actual heavy object that I'm trying to lift is going to be fairly slow and stable until I get enough force in it. And look at this preparation right here. So he's bending even further down, and then he's really using his legs now to push upwards. And then he's going to bend back, like really forcing this behind him, and then shoving it up, right, boom, onto this thing, right? So you can see that amazing reverse C that he's got going on here, right? And then sort of pushing over the ball, right? So now when I'm going to break this down, I'm going through this video. Now, this is a very shaky video, but I'm still able to feel the actual posing, right? So let's have a look at my blocking here. So breaking down the mechanics. So I did basically the same thing that he's doing, right? But just sort of pushing it for the character, right? So again, just sort of blocking this in. So I had a little bit of a walk up to the object, getting the tension in the fingers, right? And I even did that same sort of thing, like he's going to lift it up, and then he sort of says, no, I'm not quite ready for it. And then I brought him even closer to the ball, right? And then raising down. Then again, sort of here, just like using his legs to lift up first and then his back, right? Bringing this up. And then this is where I'm using, so the hands are basically parented to the ball, right? So I can actually shift them around and still key them, right? So that it's not like they're just straight constrained, right? So where they're locked in. So I want to keep the hands somewhat free that I can actually, uh, you know, use them and shift their position to get a better feel for where they're contacting, right? And then I wanted to get in here, just my little bit of acting. Like, so I was like, let me just see if I can kind of, push his lips and sort of like as if he's puffing out his cheeks, like bracing himself, ready for this next move here, right? And then using his legs and his back up here, and then trying to get that nice reverse angle right here that the weightlifter had, and then sort of pushing it right here. And then I finished it off by just sort of rolling it and then sort of letting it stop, right, using my hands. Okay. So that was sort of like the blocking, right? And then to break it down, what I want to try to do is add some extra tension in there. So I added like a little bit of shake, a little bit of vibration on his legs. So if we check this out. So again, just sort of smoothing things out, like not making sure that I'm not completely twinned here. So one hand coming up before the other, one hand coming down before the other, right? And then as I'm lifting here, like I wanted to get this little bit of shake just to show that there was actual tension there in his legs, right? A little bit of shake. And again, just sort of like getting that compression, right? Like around the ball, right? So I'm making sure that I'm getting that intimacy right here where there's no negative space. I basically just kind of penetrating that ball through his chest. So in cleanup, if I was to do this in a feature film, then what we would do is actually push, deformers around his chest to make sure that there's no IP. But it's very important to get that contact right there on the ball, right? So this would sort of be it's stone, right? So it's a heavy object, very solid. So there's not going to be any compression on this object. There's a truth to materials here, right? I'm not going to just kind of squash the ball. So I want to basically push around, the actual chest around this ball, right? And then I want to get like a little bit of strain on his face, right? So a little bit of, trying to, brace myself, in anticipation for this next lift, right? And then start to lift it up, squish his eyes to show that tension, and raising it up, and very, very slowly, right? So if you're tracking the ball's not moving a whole hell of a lot until I reach this point of no return where it's like, okay, I'm not in control now. Like, if I stop right here, this character's going to, get collapsed by this ball, right? But this is the point of no return, so I have to let it go. There's got to be some gravity here that's going to take over. Boom, and then it lands down nice and hard, and then cushion to a stop, right? So that's the idea. That's how I prepare for this stuff. So the importance of shooting live action reference or finding footage on YouTube is super, super important. That way you really have something that eliminates all the bad ideas, and you can get efficiently into the mind of the actual character itself. And then using this as sort of like a guide, to push it for my own character, then I'm able to get a successful weight lift.